Okay, so in this video we're going to take a look at some special cases for factoring. Many of us have been struggling with these, so just take note of the most important pieces here, is knowing which term goes where. So a couple of things that I don't know if we've made clear this year is that the term that always goes in your boxes is always the x squared and the number. So when I look at this problem, I realize I'm not missing what goes in the boxes. These go always across from each other. The term that I'm missing is the x's. It's typically the term that's in the middle. And if I'm missing it, many of you have learned that then we put a 0 in, because if we're missing it, there are 0 of them. So the term that goes in the diamond problem is always the number of x's, and in this case it's 0. So now I'm going to take a look at what goes in the top of the diamond problem, and that's always the product of the two numbers in the boxes. And in this case, it's negative 100 x squared, because 4 times negative 25 is negative 100. Now I'm going to figure out what adds up to 0 and multiplies to negative 100. And those two numbers, well, we hopefully know one's positive, one's negative. It's the only way to add to 0. And they have to actually be equal numbers, the same value, because they have to add to 0. So it's going to be, in this case, 10x and negative 10x, because that multiplies to 100, negative 100, and adds to 0. Now I put them in my diamond problem, my box, and I start to work on the outside. Now as you get better at this, you get more attuned to try and figure things out. Since these two terms are equal, these two corners are the same value but one's negative, I already know that this probably has to be a negative to make the negative 10x. But another idea, since they're equal, odds are these two will be equal for my 4x squared. So they're actually both going to be 2x's. I'm going to try that. Remember, you try something, if it doesn't work, you try again. So then 2x I copied across. 2x times 5 will make 10x. Copied across. And let's see, copy this one up, 2x. 2x times negative 5 will make negative 10x. Copy it across, and I make sure that negative 25 gives me that corner. So yes, 5 times negative 5 is negative 25. Remember, your final answer is a factored pair, 2x plus 5 times 2x minus 5, because those are the two dimensions of my rectangle. So don't be afraid to add in a 0. That's the key with this video, but make sure you know which one is 0. Let's take a look at the next example, because it poses a different problem. This one, we look and we see the x squared term, and we see the x term, but the term that's missing is the number that gets added on at the end. The x term always goes in my diamond problem. The x squared always goes in my boxes, so 3x squared. And across from that, I'm going to put 0, because that's the number of units, which is nothing. Doing the same exact process, I multiply across. Well, 0 times anything is 0. So I need two numbers that multiply to 0 but add to 18. Multiply to 0 but add to 18. Well, the only way to multiply to 0 is to have one number be 0. So this has to be 0 and 18x. So 18x and 0. So this top piece of my generic rectangle actually is really irrelevant, meaning I don't really need it because it's all zeros. And the only way to get those zeros up there is to have a 0 out here. So I actually don't need it. So let's take a look at 3x squared plus 18x. We simply need to factor that. I'm looking for 3x squared, so let's see, I'm going to think of the greatest common thing, and 3 goes into both numbers. And they both have an x, so 3x. 3x times x is 3x squared. Copy the 3x so I can think about the 18x. Let's see, 3x times 6. So my factored form is 3x, x plus 6. So remember, the keys here are to figure out who is 0 and to put a 0 in for what's 0 every single time. Figure out who is 0. You should always have an x squared term, an x term, and a constant number term. And if one of them is missing, then you'd have 0 of them, and you'd have numbers for the other two. So those are some keys. Always think about who is 0 and where it usually goes in the box or the diamond problem, and then factor from there. So good luck. Hopefully with this practice you'll become a little bit better at factoring and you'll be stronger on future